Hello Cosmos Hub! Today I'll have Simon from Orbit Earn and we will speak a lot about the Orbit, DeFi and Cosmos Hub. Don't forget that you can always support us by staking your tokens with the Quasar Validator. Hi Simon, it's a pleasure to see you with us. Can you please tell us a bit about who are you, how you entered the crypto world and what are you doing in general?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a history of crypto actually. I actually mined crypto on my computer back in 2012. I was told about it from a coworker, and it was kind of like, it felt like the surveys thing. Sometimes you can do surveys and get a bit of money, and it sort of felt like, it's like, okay, I got a computer, I spend all my time on my computer, let me try and do this thing. Didn't really see much returns from it at the time, so I just kind of forgot about it. And then throw back to 2016, a friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, you need to check out crypto." I was like, "Yeah, I remember Bitcoin or whatever. You got to check it out. It's like, I think it's going to go crazy." It was like less than $1,000 at the time. It was like much lower. And so I was like, okay. So I bought some, and I remember going up, and I sold early, and then I remember watching the chart, but not because I wanted to see it go up, because I wanted to see it go down. I was kind of hating on it, saying it's a scam because I'd sold early and I wanted to come down. So it's quite funny. But I got into altcoins, got into ICOs, and I've been in crypto ever since. So traded a bit through 2018, 2019. Was very interested in Power Ledger and a different kind of projects that had white papers and that were building. And then got into DeFi summer 2020, 21. Then from there, I kind of got really interested in onboarding new users to the space, especially around stable coins and yield. I was a bit skeptical about usdt at the time. And I wanted to find solutions that were a bit more decentralized. And so I actually found Terra Anchor Protocol in the early days. I got into the Terra ecosystem, and I was fascinated by the UX. I was fascinated by how simple things were. And so at the time I was I had a close group with 2,000 people, and I was really into the crypto space, and I loved making education, and I was good at it. I was good at simplifying these complex topics. So I got into Terra, got into Anchor, and it turned out there was a contact of mine that was building a DeFi protocol on Terra that I knew from years ago, but I didn't know it was actually building on Terra. And I was kind of reached out, and I pitched him on this concept of this learn to earn education platform that I wanted to build. And then I pitched TFL themselves, and they actually funded this program, and I ended up building the education for the Terra ecosystem. And the idea was to build these really easy to understand videos and really kind of onboard users to Terra. Worked with the DeFi protocol, helped with growth there. I wasn't a founder, but I was kind of very involved publicly. Terra collapsed, things kind of went to shit, and then I was trying to figure out what next. I wasn't ready to step away, and I wanted to kind of keep building. So I'd been advising for a launchpad in the Terra ecosystem, and the founders just kind of vanished when Terra happened. So I talked to them, and I actually ended up taking over that company, rebranded it to EclipseFi. Was EclipsePad at the time. And then the journey started to try and create a launchpad in the Cosmos ecosystem, which was kind of insane to look back. If you looked back now and when you try to build a launchpad in a bear market in the Cosmos ecosystem, it's absolutely mental. But I believed that there was all these the app chain thesis, and there'd be more of these chains, and they were kind of doing airdrops, and there was an avenue for them to raise funds from communities. So they're really focused on trying to kind of have this launchpad for Cosmos, and built for a couple of years. It was very hard at the start because raising funding and building this thing was really hard, considering there's not that many users and there was a bear market. Ended up kind of positioning on Say as one of the top dApps. They kind of screwed over the ecosystem, moved forward, ended up launching a token. We had a very successful hype period where we actually onboarded 16,000 users to Cosmos, to Neutron, KYC users, real users. We brought capital in, we brought projects, but then the market just kind of didn't really go in our favor for a launchpad, very cyclical by nature. And we were really struggling with some of these launches that were just getting worse and worse over time. We decided to pivot and try and build some new products. We built Equinox, which is a governance aggregator on top of Terra, on top of Astroport on Neutron. And that saw some success on a lock drop. We kind of got this initial success, but then kind of the ecosystem sort of dwindled in terms of liquidity and active participation, and Astro token was challenging. we kind of were working on a few more products, and then we kind of hit a bottleneck where we said, we actually want to build something that can scale outside of just the crypto space. We don't want to be stuck in kind of a silo, and we want to actually figure out how we can reach these users that still are not using crypto from outside. What is the best way for us to do this? And so that's where we actually started Orbit Earn. And we initially were thinking, do we just pivot ELYS completely to doing what Orbit's doing, or do we start a new brand? And we figured that because we'd launched multiple products and kind of had all this, been building ELYS for 3 years, we determined that building Orbit Earn as its own entity was smart, and that would kind of bring value back to old holders and investors. And so we kickstarted Orbit Earn around February of this year. And that's sort of the start of what Orbit is.
So can you please tell us what is the Orbit Earn in general?
Orbit, I'll tell you where it started, because the public facing materials, we've actually adjusted from that, and the vision's kind of adapted over time. It started off as the thing that we're really good at is simplifying complexity. One thing that we're really good at was UX, and we're really good at taking a lot of the crypto people, the DeFi people, were super focused on the tech and on this crazy DeFi stuff, but they weren't very good at making it into simple experiences for users or onboarding these users. One thing that we're really good at is creating products that are very easy to use or very easy to navigate, and how to to simplify the complexity. And we always believed that one of the funnels into the space was building an easy savings product, or a product that can kind of abstract this complexity for everyday users. And so that's where Orbit started. We thought of Anchor Protocol and the success of Anchor. How can we take savings or a stable yield, and how do we kind of compress this into the flow for users to kind of participate? How do we aggregate different opportunities across many, many chains into kind of one place and allow someone to have a one button deposit? That was the initial concept. And we drew some inspiration from Anchor in terms of we wanted to productize the yield and make it plug and play. So Anchor Protocol, for those that are aware, Anchor Protocol on the day, even though it exploded, did something really cool around plug and play yield, where protocols and companies were building on top of Anchor Protocol's yield to create new use cases for products. So, for example, CoinHall had built a subscription service using the yield, where people could subscribe and pay for something using their yield. Pylon Protocol built a launchpad using yield, right? ELYS Finance built a fintech Web2 company that embedded the yield and offered it as a savings product. So there was a lot of these use cases that used yield as more than just savings, and more of these products. And so the big thing for us, and the thing we wanted to validate, is can we create products and modules that do really interesting things with their savings that they normally wouldn't be able to do. And so we started building the first iteration of this, which was the DCA. The idea was that could we build kind of a really easy module that allowed people to deposit and then selected a number of assets, and then automatically stream their yield from the savings into the assets without having to do anything manual. So it's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Atom, and you could say 33%, 33%. And if every 8 hours, it would claim the yield and it would send it to those assets and buy them. It was just an early teaser or commentary on what we can actually achieve with these modules, and it got really good recognition. But then we hit a bit of a wall with the way that we were positioning Orbit, which was we were initially positioning as purely B2C, and the idea was hey, we're going to offer these to the users and we're going to kind of attract. And then we took a bit of a step back. We talked to a bunch of investors. We talked to a kind of whole range of things, and we realized that B2C was going to be a very challenging proposition, but if just purely B2C, because the marketing costs and the costs you have to do to bring the users that aren't already in your kind of environment into the app is really high, and it's much harder. So we did some digging and some research, and we found there was actually a very high level of demand for embedded finance from both apps and exchanges in crypto, but also fintechs outside of the space. Many of them, we talked to them about this yield thing, and they were super excited. They were just this is really cool. We want to integrate savings into our protocol as well. And so we just kind of got going with these conversations and realized that there's a big market for embedded finance, where we could actually do what we're doing with Orbit. And instead of just being B2C and the business focus being just B2C, we could actually take these products and package them and then allow them to be integrated into these third parties. So they could offer these products directly to their users, where they already have the users, they're just looking for products to plug into. And that got further validated by Robinhood coming to crypto, and all these kind of fintechs starting to kind of want crypto products and DeFi products. And so that's the latest where we're at. We've signed some pilot partners. We're kind of expanding those pipelines. We will be like we will have the app that's available to crypto people and just like you can experience on Orbit. But the business focus in terms of like how we make revenue and money and like our expansion plans to be a lot more B2B focused, and the expansion of like the kind of Web 2 on crypto rails. So that gives you a bit of an idea of kind of where we're at with Orbit.
Okay, very interesting concept. And as far as I understand, this is like the general differences of Orbit from other DeFi protocols, especially in the Cosmos Hub.
I mean, there's not really, I wouldn't say there's too much competition here. Like, there's a few ways of looking at it. Like, I like to look at like DeFi. I like to look at the competition beyond just the Cosmos Hub, because there's Vaders and there's kind of big protocols out there. But in the Cosmos Hub, like I'm in connections with all the protocols deploying on the Cosmos Hub. There's some competition in terms of yield sources, but it's not a problem for us because our goal is to aggregate these yield sources. So we could have like a yield source, a 15% yield source, and we can actually aggregate that, right? Same thing with like money markets and lending markets, and even the savings app the savings apps and things looking to deploy in the hub, we can actually embed our yield into their platform, directly taking that share. So from the Cosmos Hub in general, it's more of a synergistic relationship that we'll be able to have with the people around. If we look at competition as a bigger scale, yes, there's parties like Vaders of the world that are doing some kind of embedded DeFi yield, and other protocols building their own yield aggregation and stuff. But I think where we really differ is that we are focusing on the product and the UX and the embedding side of it, and how easy it is to actually do that, as opposed to just providing a strategy to a fintech and letting them kind of have to figure it out. It's like the difference between a PayPal and a Stripe, right? Where PayPal was kind of the big dog that offered this kind of services, but it was quite hard and clunky to kind of involve. Where Stripe came along and went, we're doing the same thing, but we can make this super easy for people to integrate like really quickly with really clean UX. And so that's our approach, both the integration of the yield, but also more than just yield, integrating modules and product related modules that actually can act as their own kind of product pillars within a fintech. I think that's where we want to go.
Great. So I also would like to ask about the Orbit ecosystem. I would like to call it like that. While I was reading the documents, I found that the main focus is the USDC. But I would like to ask about, will Orbit have their own token?
I thought you were going to say about USDT. Orbit will have its own token in the future. So we're going to run a points program and we're going to have a token. And the main goal is that the token will have utility within some of the modules, but we'll also do kind of like a revenue share to the token, kind of like what the Morphos of the world are doing. But that's going to be a little while away because we're focusing on product traction first. So main focus is rolling out like USDC, USDT strategies, and then we'll roll out like probably vaults for like Atom, for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, like aggregation vaults that can offer those. And then like with those points programs, we'll keep running like a couple seasons, and then we'll kind of look to kind of launch our token and TG once we've got good traction.
I'm also very curious about the users of the DeFi protocols, because we don't have a good market for a while, and how to attract new users and make them to use the protocols, work with the assets, and do all the things they can do.
Nuances to this, right? And this is why I mentioned at the start, like a big focus for us is B2B. So it's not necessarily attracting direct users as much as it is attracting users through third parties that already have distribution bases that don't even touch crypto. That's the mission, right? Like we have obviously apps that are crypto native that want to integrate, but we also have apps that are non-crypto native that have a large base of users that want to be able to offer these products to their users. So like I think that is why that's our biggest business strategy, because we know that the acquisition costs of users in the space is difficult. We will run campaigns that are dedicated to kind of bringing like core users in, KOLs and points programs and like referral programs and things like that in the space. We're also making multi-chain deposits available, so people will be able to deposit, pretty much feel like native deposits from multiple different ecosystems, and that all will be routed back to the same hub. And so we'll be able to get like some level of chain distribution by having this wider deposit catchment. But eventually the goal really is to capture users that aren't in the space already, and to get more of that in.
Nice, very nice. I like it a lot because it's kind of something new for the DeFi in general, because most of the protocols are working only with users and they don't look for the B2B sector at all. The very hot theme in the last couple of months is the security of DeFi protocols, because we've seen a lot of hacks of the very big players, and how Orbit solved that, how Orbit secure itself.
A couple of things, right? So there's a few layers of security. So we're looking at, if I could break it down, you have like protocols, basic smart contracts, security risk measures. So audits at the top, and so we're about to go into some audits as well for Orbit. We also have, like, on the team, sort of like our head developer is ex-Oak auditor as well, so has a lot of experience with like the security side of things. Second layer down is integrating with protocols like Hypernative or Immunify, which are kind of like protocols that allow you to kind of monitor security on an ongoing basis. Third layer down would be what we're kind of the next component we're working on, which is a risk engine. So when we're dealing with like cross-chain aggregation, one of the challenging components is, if a hack happens, how do you ensure that like you've got safeguards in place to avoid it creating contagion across the whole ecosystem? So that's one of the next components, is to kind of build up the risk engine to kind of prevent against like any issues with that happening. Then you drop another layer down, and you have how do we prevent, in the first place, look at preventing security issues. Like, because we're a protocol that aggregates lots of different yield sources, we also not just have to have a look at the yield, like our smart contracts, we have to actually look at the protocols that we involve or we aggregate within the project. So there's a couple layers. Like, the first layer is qualitative analysis. We started working on quantitative analysis as well, but that's less relevant to this, and we need to be at more scale before that becomes really important. But the qualitative analysis looks at every venue that we aggregate and goes, what's their history, what's their liquidity, what are their audits, what's the liquidation mechanisms, like is there chances of bad debt, everything. And so we look at all these venues, and then we give them risk scores, and based on that we allocate, the strategy gives it a score and allocates funds based on a factor of yield plus also the risk factors. And then that's also spread across multiple strategies. So rather than just having all your money into one strategy, at the moment on launch, we're going to have about 28 different strategies allocated, and that will keep expanding. So there's also some diversification across different strategies, which means you're touching more protocols for sure, but it also means that there's less eggs in one basket in terms of if a hack happens on an individual protocol. So that's the aggregation risk. And the last one I would say, and still a bit early on this front, but we've been mapping out, I guess, like insurance and that side of things. So there's a couple of ways to go. One side is internal insurance funds. So it's to create basically a pool from revenue or from allowing people to opt in to kind of create a pool in case like a hack on a third-party protocol, something does happen. The second route we can go down is like doing like Nexus Mutual, which is like a partnership with an insurance provider like Nexus. I don't personally like that one as much, because the way that they structure it is you have to kind of pay up front for it. So it's not really as ideal as someone be able to subscribe to a membership over time, which would be the ideal situation. But I just give you a bit of a framework of how we're thinking about like security and risk, which is really important for what we're doing, because if we want to reach kind of normies, it's probably the most important thing of everything almost.
Orbit now is the closed beta testing period. When we'll have public tests, and will be the testers rewarded?
We're going to do a public test net. We're probably going to go straight into closed mainnet. So we've finished all the contracts. Contracts are done for this kind of stage. We're final stage is the back end, like we're literally on final touches. And we're working on the position managers. So I think we've got probably 4 position managers left to go. And position managers are like the what manage like the strategies across different ecosystems. So Arbitrum, Ethereum Base, and Solana will come in August. Essentially, those position managers is what controls like the funds being deposited in and out of like a lending market. So we've basically got a couple left, and we've then been running testing. So from a tech perspective, we're pretty much there. There's a few front end things. The main delays have been like our chats with, I guess, like the ICF and the timing of the Cosmos Hub, because Cosmos Hub isn't even live on EVM. So that's kind of been some of these discussions. There's been some back and forth and things behind the scenes on that front. But essentially the goal for us is to go into kind of closed mainnet as soon as we can. We'll run like a points program and a referral program on that. So it won't be directly incentivized, at least publicly or officially. But we will run like exclusive things for early testers and alpha people that kind of join the alpha test and become part of the testing groups. We will have kind of like a period where they have a number of like referral codes they can give out and earn points on like the referrals coming in. That will get access to points in before everybody else does as well. So that's kind of it for right now what we've put out. Yeah, so it just gives you a bit of an idea. Closed mainnet and then open mainnet is the goal.
The last question, what are your predictions for the future of Orbitern and the Cosmos Hub in general?
I'll start with Orbit Earn and then I'll go on to the Cosmos Hub. So I think we have a very clear trajectory for Orbit now. The main thing that's going to kind of change is like we have to adapt to regulation and how that works. And so, but we seem to be going in the right direction with the B2B. Like we want to kind of become sort of an embedded layer for DeFi into the wider Web2. Like we believe that if we can start with like using yield as an embed into fintechs, we can expand those product offerings into kind of wider opportunities for these fintechs to monetize and to create to offer products to their users that are beneficial without them having to have the expertise and knowledge to kind of do it themselves. We believe that we can actually use yield as a Trojan horse to get the foot in the door and then to be able to offer more and more sticky products to these kind of fintechs and these platforms. Once we do that, like it's very hard for the change cost becomes very hard because you're already kind of a partner. They've already got like tons of your stuff built into their platform and users, and you can offer them kind of more products that can be monetized. So we want to kind of use that and then expand from that. The second part to that I feel that is going to be great for growth or network effects is going to be allowing developers to come in and build their own modules. That if they pass like the right checks and stuff, then maybe we can offer like monetization opportunities for them to tap into the distribution network. If we do this well, it could be a really powerful flywheel where people could come in and build new DeFi modules that can be offered into the distribution network, which then, you know, means there's more product offerings, which makes the product stickier and means that more people can do it. And the third component would be like eventually we will want to build our own distribution. So we will want to focus some energy on the B2C side and acquiring direct users because that opens up more doors to kind of making more money and monetizing and things like that. So that's how I see it. I do see the opportunity ahead to kind of create a lot of plumbing for DeFi, for fintechs, but from the user experience side, more than just the super infrastructure side. And I think if we pull this off quite well, we should be able to like embed and kind of grow from that. From the Cosmos Hub, I think the Cosmos Hub does have a bit of an uphill battle ahead of it. Like there's a lot of work to be done. I think there's great people behind it. So I think that's really what's going to push it forward. The question is like, they're going to focus on, cross-chain applications, IBC. Now that they're, going EVM, it's going to be more competitive and challenging because they're then directly going to compete against other ecosystems. But I think their secret sauce will be if they can kind of come in and incubate products directly in-house and really support those type builders and build a very, very powerful ecosystem, that's where they'll be able to get traction. I do think they're going to need to go down the direction of RWAs or yield or some kind of embedded into Web 2, as distribution is probably going to be the most important part of the next 12 months, 24 months. Distribution into kind of Web 2 networks is going to be key, whether that's institutions, whether that's like the Robinhoods of the world that come in and build a chain using the underlying infrastructure, or whether it's directly building products that can be sold directly B2B. I think that's where the future is going to be, at least in the medium term.
Thanks a lot, Simon, for joining us today. It was a very interesting story about Orbitern. It's something new and very fresh for the Cosmos Hub and the DeFi ecosystem, I think, in general. I hope everything will work.